Take it away.
Okay. Today we have with us Chris Nicolopoulos and Andrew Demers from the New Hampshire Insurance Department. And Andrew wasn't scheduled to come this morning, so I just have some information on Nick, which I'll read. Chris is Commissioner of the New Hampshire Insurance Department. He is nominated by Governor Chris Sununu and unanimously approved by the New Hampshire Executive Council. Previously, Commissioner Nicolopoulos served as President and CEO of the New Hampshire Association of Insurance Agents for 5 years. Prior to leading the New Hampshire Association of Insurance Agents, he was an associate at Preddy, Flaherty, Beliveau, and Pachios, PLLP, and Government Affairs Director at the New Hampshire Association of Realtors. Commissioner Nicolopoulos earned his JD from New England Law School and his Bachelor of Arts History from the University of New Hampshire. Since 2002, Chris has been licensed to practice law in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. He now lives in Bow, New Hampshire. So, Chris, if you'd like to come up.
First up, I want to thank you all for having us out here. The last few months, we've attended, I think, 5 or 6 different Rotaries, and ultimately our goal is to get out and explain to people what the New Hampshire Insurance Department does. So I've been commissioner for just over 2 years. It's been an interesting time because I started March of 2020. So 10 days after I started, the state closed down. My staff all went home, but we persevered through that. And I thought it'd be helpful for you to hear what we do and what our primary charge is. Ultimately, our charge is consumer protection. We worked so that citizens of New Hampshire, insureds of New Hampshire, have a place to go when they have an issue with an insurance product. Anything from a health insurance, EOB, which is an explanation of benefits. We all get those when we go to our doctors, or a loss on their car or home and they don't understand why something is or isn't covered. They can talk to our team. We have a consumer team of 7 people that will handle something in the range of 5,000 consumer calls a year. 5,000 consumers who didn't know where to turn, who ultimately turned to the New Hampshire Insurance Department. And of those claims, something like 15%, 750 of those turn into investigations where our team will look to make sure that an insurance company or insurance agent or insurance adjuster handled the process appropriately to make sure that they're complying with our state laws and our federal laws, that they got the coverages that they purchased, that they were adequately treated. And it's a pretty amazing job. It's an interesting job because most folks don't know and don't appreciate the insurance department exists. We have 75 people on our team, 50 or 60 of which are bona fide subject matter experts in some aspect of insurance. Obviously, there are lots of different specialties within that. And some of the things we do are, we license nearly 200,000 producers and adjusters. And that means anybody who wants to potentially ever sell an insurance product to someone in the state of New Hampshire has to hold a license here. And so we have a producer license for every 7 residents in the state. The vast majority of those are out-of-state employees of large insurance companies who just license their folks everywhere. About 7,000 of those 200,000 are in-state, Main Street insurance producers that we all know. We have a fraud department on our team, three folks that investigate insurance fraud. Insurance companies are mandated under state law that when they believe a claim or a policy purchase was fraudulent, that they tell us. And our team will look into that, investigate, determine whether or not the person was adequately bought coverage, adequately had a claim. And then if we find that there was some aspect of insurance fraud, we will ultimately refer that over to county prosecutor or the federal prosecutor. And we do that because it maintains and protects the integrity of the system, maintains the integrity of the pricing of insurance. A huge aspect of what we do is to make sure insurance products are adequately priced and that companies have appropriate financial safety measures in place. And so we have teams in our office that review the financials of each and every insurance company that's licensed to do business here. And there's some 1,200 insurance companies licensed to do business here in the state of New Hampshire. We're looking at their financials to make sure that they have adequate reserves, that they're appropriately reporting the claims that they potentially have against them. You know, as insurance claims happen, they sometimes take months or years to work their way through the process to determine what the claim amounts are going to be, and that they're adequately reserving for those. Obviously, it's critical that they're charging adequate premium, that they're charging each and every policyholder about the right amount of premium to offset the risk those people bring. Otherwise, the companies aren't going to be there for the long haul. And we want to obviously make sure through a variety of state and federal laws that insurance companies are treating people fairly. That when they use certain rating factors to price a policy, that they're doing that in such a way that it isn't unfairly discriminatory, does represent some relation to the risk that individual policy has. Overall, our New Hampshire insurance marketplace is vibrant. We're very lucky. Out of all the lines of insurance that potentially could touch us, there are very few that aren't competitive. In New Hampshire, the primary line of insurance that's not competitive is medical malpractice. There just aren't enough insurance companies willing to take on the risk of medical malpractice claims. And so that's one place where, as commissioner, I wish I could do more. I wish I could bring more companies in willing to write medical malpractice insurance. But in large part, we're in pretty good shape for having companies willing to write our insurance. A very, very competitive marketplace. I think the one place that touches almost everybody is health insurance. And there's a lot of health insurance regulation that happens at the federal level now with the ACA. A whole bunch of state mandates and rating structures are governed by federal law. But that doesn't mean that New Hampshire is hands off. We have our own laws that allow us to adopt New Hampshire specific mandates, New Hampshire specific network adequacy rules, New Hampshire specific payment guidelines. We're very lucky for a state of just 1.3 million people to have 5 insurance companies competing for our health insurance marketplace. And an interesting thing is when I started back 2 years ago, just at the beginning of COVID, I didn't know these players. I didn't know the presidents of the 5 insurance companies. But what I knew was there was uncertain times, and I needed to build a relationship with them. And I started having weekly or biweekly calls with the president of each of those 5 companies to talk about how COVID was rolling out. How are we going to deal with surveillance testing for COVID, whether it was medically necessary or not? How are we going to ensure that New Hampshire consumers, New Hampshire insureds continue to get their preventative care, continue to get their vaccines, continue to get their colonoscopies? And so every other week, I met with each of them. And through the summer that year, I thought I'm taking too much of their time. There's a whole team of executives at each of these companies spending half an hour with me. And I offered to cancel, stop having the meetings. And each and every one of them said, Commissioner, this opportunity to have dialogue with you every 2 weeks is so important to us. We're able to head off issues ahead of time. You're able to bring issues to us. And so 2 years later, we're still having those calls every other week. I'd be happy to answer any questions or provide any specific information about the New Hampshire insurance marketplace that you guys all might have, if you haven't. Sure.
What's the landscape look like as far as like consolidation stuff? We have insurance, particularly the agencies, it seems like they're merging.
That is a phenomenal question. And I came from the independent agency world. So I spent almost 6 years representing independent agents here in New Hampshire prior to taking the job as commissioner. And the consolidation there has been amazing. There's just agency values, the Main Street agency that we all knew of, where we got our first insurance policy or had our business insurance, or had an agent there who could explain to us what we needed for coverage. Those agencies have become particularly valuable. Over the time that I've been doing this, more than doubled in value based on metrics of cap rates and such. And so we are seeing consolidation. And some of that's wonderful. When bigger independent agents buy up a small agency, that agency gets access to bigger markets, gets better costs, better commission sharing, better resources. But on the flip side of that, what you sometimes lose is the main street feel of your local independent agent. And I think there are a lot of factors that drive the consolidation. One, agency value. Part of it is compensation structure from companies to agents, incentivize very large books of business. And so as they consolidate and grow bigger, agencies have a disproportionate incentive to be acquired by bigger and bigger agencies. I don't know where that's going. I think independent agents play a huge role. More than half of the insurance sold to personal line consumers, people's houses, people's cars, are sold by independent agents here in New Hampshire. And much more of the small commercial, mid-market commercial is sold by independent agents because you can't just spend 15 minutes online and get your commercial insurance. Independent agents play a huge part in protecting consumers here in New Hampshire. That's a phenomenal question. Thank you. Somebody else raise their hand?
Are you all involved in the additions to Medicare that are also being offered out here? You get involved in those companies?
The Advantage products and whatnot?
Yes.
No, most of those are either federally mandated or DHHS mandated programs.
The part that's confusing is how they are connected to Medicare, because I get so many requests to add in more services, and I don't know who it's coming from. I think that's federal, huh?
It's federal and DHHS, which is our Health and Human Services. We don't regulate those products, and I'm not that because of that.
You're not involved in them.
I'm not. But it is confusing. It's confusing enough. I don't have.
Well, another one you would be involved in is, do you help set the minimum amount you have to spend on car insurance?
Yes. Yeah.
So you set that?
So you're talking about minimum insurance limits?
Yes, minimum insurance.
I don't set it. The legislature in New Hampshire does. And New Hampshire has a very interesting view of car insurance. So we're the only state in the nation where you don't have to purchase car insurance. Don't have to have it.
I thought there's a minimum.
But if you buy insurance, it's got to be at least $25.50, which means 25 per claimant, 50 total accident. If you want to talk about inadequate insurance, $25.50 is inadequate insurance. There, think of what a medical bill, think of what our cars cost. A single ride in an ambulance could be more than 25. Visit to the hospital would be more than $25,000. So that minimum limit is set by our legislature. Either don't buy it, but if you do buy it, buy $25.50. A state rep from Manchester last year said that is not enough. We are doing a disservice to our New Hampshire citizens by suggesting that $25.50 is an appropriate amount of insurance. We should raise that number up. If you're going to have it, you should have it at least in some adequate level, 100, 300, 50, 100. And the legislature ultimately is in a catch-22. If you raise the minimum, insurance is going to get a very little bit more expensive, $7, $10 a year more expensive, depending if you're a terrible driver, maybe more. But are you going to have people who opt not to then purchase insurance? And that's the rub. And so the legislature, when faced with should we increase minimum limits, has not increased them.
But what percentage of people are not insured because?
That's a great question too. New Hampshire, despite having distinction as the only state that doesn't require insurance, New Hampshire ranks in the top 10 states for carrying insurance, which is mind-numbing to think that 40 states, all which require insurance, have more drivers who are flouting the law than we have here without a law. But that is driven almost entirely by our socioeconomic makeup here in New Hampshire. If we're candid, New Hampshire is better educated than average, richer than average. And so people make good business decisions about whether or not they're willing to drive on the road without insurance. And because of that, very few people here in New Hampshire drive without even though it's not required.
Well, the other side of that is that I've driven for 65 years and never had an insurance cost. I mean, never had an accident
Yeah,
for 65 years. And so after 65 years, you sort of say, why am I paying $5,000 for insurance?
you know why? Peace of mind. That's why I buy insurance. And I've always had an independent agent. I've always been adequately insured way before I was here. And it's because it allows you to sleep at night, to know that if the worst happens, that your kids are safe, that your house is safe, that your savings is safe.
But is New Hampshire the only state that does not require life insurance?
Yes.
Why?
Live free or die.
Live free of insurance. Live free and die in your car.
Yeah, well, yeah, but the data is, and we have 2 actuaries that work for my department, and so they're the most introverted people you've ever met. They're just number guys. And each year that bill gets introduced, require mandatory insurance in New Hampshire. And each year we bring out Christian from his closet to tell us how many more people in New Hampshire would buy insurance if you mandated the law. And he can't say one word. We already are way above the national average. Those people who don't have insurance now either can't afford it or won't afford it. And it's not going to change who's insured on the road.
What, the people who aren't insured, can they have an accident? What happens? in terms
So-
of compensation.
So
It's
what?
not your accidents usually aren't one sided necessarily.
So if you're an at-fault accident here in New Hampshire without coverage, 2 things will happen. One, you're personally responsible for the loss. And what will happen is the person who you cause damage to's insurance will cover. It's called uninsured motorist. So provided that the other person has insurance, they're insured. It'll be seamless for the person who has insurance. Their insurance will pay. That insurance company will notify the DMV that there was an uncovered claim. The DMV ultimately will pull the license of the person who was at fault. And for that, yep.
If they don't pay.
If they don't pay. And the law has been softened a little bit, and to get a license back, basically they'll have to get an SR22 insurance proof that they have insurance going forward. It was for a long time, our state law was if you didn't pay, you lost your license. Period. It's now possible to drive with an SR22 going forward, but you will have that liability to the person, or the ultimately you'll have liability to the insurance company to pay the claim.
My memory may be failing, but it feels like 40 some years ago, there was a meaningless bond or something like $10,000 that you had to post if you were going to invoke the I'm going to go uninsured, which of course wouldn't cover much of anything.
That doesn't exist
I
today.
assume that is long gone.
There's no bond for, I don't even think there's a bond that you could put in place of that. The problem with a bond is anytime you're talking about a bond, and a bond is an insurance product that we regulate, people, places that people generally buy bonds are road builders buy bonds to cover that they complete a road appropriately. Or fiduciaries buy bonds to make sure that they do what they're supposed to. I'm the executor of somebody's will, I buy a bond to protect that. Those bonds are different from insurance because if they have to pay a claim, the road's not well built or executor runs over the money, the insurance company will pay the beneficiary of those bonds, but then will sue the person for recoupment. And so the bond insurance is really just, I promise to make sure they do what they're supposed to, but then you're personally liable. There is no place for bond for covering auto insurance. Andrew.
Before we wrap up, I just wanted to take a quick second. And first of all, thank you guys all for having us. It's been a real pleasure. As we go around the state, talking to folks at Rotaries and chambers, events, and places like this, we're always trying to do a better job of getting the information to people that they really need. And that was really the impetus for for the series of meetings that we're having with folks across the state. You know, our consumer team that the commissioner mentioned, every month does a survey, and they ask people that they've closed investigations and complaints with, how did you hear about us, you know? And by and large, people are finding us on the internet, but they're also hearing about us from friends and family and folks that they engage with, and that's you guys. So what I'm hoping is two things, that you can first of all help yourself to some pamphlets that we have here on the table. Please pass those around. This business card has our consumer team's info, so you can give this number a call, drop them an email, and our folks will respond. You know, really, we're available to answer any questions that you can't get an answer from your agent. And if you and your agent, you know, think something's wrong, or you know, have an issue that we can help you with, we really invite you to call us. The other thing that I would encourage you to do before we leave is to take one of these surveys and just take a moment and fill out the questions. Let us know how we're doing and what we can do better for next time. You know, like I said, people are really hearing about us through friends and family. And, you know, you guys as leaders in the community are out there talking to people. And so it's very beneficial for us and for other consumers to have the word get out that we're here to help, that we have a whole team of folks. You know, there's a lot of people that don't know what we do, think we sell insurance and all that sort of thing, but we are here to help. And so if you guys could just, you know, take a minute and fill out the survey, that would be helpful to us. And take one of the pieces of material and pass it on to a friend or someone in your family, or just stick it on the fridge or something, so that if something happens or someone that you know has something happen, you can refer them to us and we can help them out best we can. So appreciate you guys. Any other questions?
You must have fraudulent situations that occur frequently, I would guess. Do you have any mechanism for disseminating?
Sure.
People are trying to peddle fraudulent types of insurance. I
Sure.
can think of a number of years ago, there was a funeral insurance company that would insure your burial services, but then they went out of business. And they didn't have the reserves to liquidate any claims. And there must be a few more examples like that you run across.
Yeah, like the commissioner said, we have 3 full-time people that investigate fraud, and we have an enforcement team with two lawyers plus our general counsel, I think is accurate. And all they do is prosecute these cases and adjudicate them in our system. So between you know, some press releases that we get out, some of them come, I think, in conjunction with the Attorney General's office on the bigger ones, especially when they're prosecuted and adjudicated. We have a social media channel that we have YouTube videos and a program we call Fraud of the Month. And it's basically our chief fraud investigator, Brendan Harris, who you know, regales the public with tales of various frauds that he's prosecuted, just as an awareness, so people know, hey, these things are going on, or these are the types of scams that are happening. You know, everything from you know, a lot of medical fraud using computers to manipulate receipts and invoices that never happened, and things of this nature, to you know, scams that are a little more coordinated and widespread. So yeah, you know, you can check our press page, you can check you know, our YouTube page, and obviously if there's something that we see as a trend, we work together as a team to get that information out. And you know, like I said, sometimes that includes the Attorney General's office when these cases are being prosecuted and adjudicated.
So I think there's the one takeaway I want you to think of when you think about fraud is, if it seems too good to be true, call us. And so the saving grace is going to be, if the fraudster is a licensed New Hampshire insurance company, licensed New Hampshire insurance agent, at least take a deep breath, because those are companies that I can ultimately exercise some control over if it goes badly. We just had a case 3 months ago now, where a company, a licensed New Hampshire company, decided to roll together some low value insurance products. And so accident disability products, you know, if you lose your finger, you get $1,200. If you lose your arm, you get 5,000 kind of coverages. They had a product that they had filed with us. And I think it was about $7 a month for this. I'm being recorded, so I'm not going to say what I really think for this low value product. And they found out it's really profitable if you kind of combine some of this low value insurance together and overcharge for it. And so to 80 something 100 New Hampshire consumers, they opted to charge them all $80 a month. So they charge them all $80 a month for several months. Somebody turned them into us. So they were charging 10 times what they were allowed to charge for this product each month. Turns out it becomes very profitable then when you don't have a lot of claims and then you're overcharging. We found out about it, did an investigation. Ultimately, they were required to pay back all restitution to all the New Hampshire consumers for the overcharging, and they paid a $250,000 fine. Those are the easy ones because it's a regulated entity. The tougher things are the products that aren't regulated, where people try to skirt our regulatory authority. And think of these health sharing ministries, which is a group of, there are religious organizations that have bona fide health sharing ministries that have been around for 25 years. People of a church or of a religious community decide, well, if one of us gets cancer, we'll all kind of kick in and help pay the cost. And if somebody else has a heart attack, we'll kick in and help pay the cost. And those bona fide kind of community-based insurance vehicles have been around for a long time and are effective in small communities in some places. Some bad actors have said, well, this is a great way to sell something that looks like insurance without the regulation, and they get a suspect religion, and they get a suspect a group, and they sell products well below what insurance should cost, and people go to it thinking it's got to be better than nothing. And so those products are harder for us to regulate. I think I saw somebody's hand.
Well, you hear these ads for Medicare, I think it is, on the radio a lot. Is that one of these types of?
I don't have an opinion on Medicare. I think Medicare purports to be one of the former and not one of the latter. We've not investigated them yet. They have very few, very small marketplace here in New Hampshire. But they are not one of the ones that we've investigated yet.
I just want to say, I think it's great that you're doing this because government is the group we love to hate and complain about. And part of it is there's no real budget for PR. They're not like a business. This is okay, 10%, we have to spend 10% to promote that we actually do things for people and help people and consumers. So I think that this is really, people want to get rid of it rather than fix it. And so thank you for doing this.
I think that, an interesting fact, I have a budget of 75 people. I think my staff payroll is like $5 million a year for all the people that have to do critical work. It's absolutely necessary work for consumer protection. What's our PR budget?
It's 37,000 or something like that.
My budget for water bottles in the office, I think, is higher than my PR. So that's a really great point. And that's something we're working on. Thanks for bringing that up.
Early on, and this is just kind of a generalized thing. Early on, you mentioned EOBs and that type of thing. When you're a consumer of both medical products, for instance, and medical insurance, and you get an EOB from a hospital visit, and it's absolutely incomprehensible. You can't look at anything on there and say, yeah, I guarantee that I got all of these services. Is there any kind of a move afoot to make those things a little bit more transparent so you can actually justify and verify what the hospitals or the medical provider is charging against the medical insurance?
No.
Okay.
Now, that being said, for each of those billing codes, for each of those CPT codes, which is the code that will be there next to what if you search that, you go on Google and search, 30,923, it will tell you exactly what that is. And so you can actually figure out what it is. It's super complicated. Now, so I have a team of like legit experts on billing codes and how hospitals contract. And even they can't convey in a way that I can understand what it all means. It's super confusing. And unfortunately, health insurance and the consumption of health care is one of the only places where consumers don't make consumer choices in America. You know, when we want to get brakes done on my truck, I call my mechanic buddy. He says, don't go to this guy, go to that guy. It should cost about this. Get a price up front, get a cash pay discount. But health insurance, I don't care because I have no incentive. Once I've hit my out-of-pocket copay, it doesn't cost me anything anymore. And we've set up a system where people have very little incentive. And I think the move to higher deductible plans has given consumers some incentive. I think there are now some health products that provide some kind of good consumer rebates. So I have a plan where if I choose a low cost provider of an MRI or a CAT scan they'll actually pay me part of the difference. So to start making people treat that like a consumer. But they're super complicated.
It almost seems to me like the medical provider quadruples the cost of everything because they know the insurance company is going to cut everything by 4.
It's the weirdest thing. So the average discount, we do a study, average discount of charges to what an insurance company pays. They about half, 55% they pay. And so you have a service and it's 10,000. And if you have Anthem, it's 5,500. Now 10,000 is the cash pay, but if you don't have any money, then it's like 900. You know, I've literally seen charges where 33,000 is the rack rate, what they charge. Anthem's going to pay 13 or 15,000 in this case. And if you don't have any money and you're going to pay cash, you don't have insurance, $3,200. And it's like, in what world does that make sense? Where you've incentivized very likely. So somebody who has a high deductible plan, I have a plan and I opt for the $5,000 deductible. I'm going to pay a $5,000 deductible for this service, where if I didn't have insurance, it would be $3,200. And so my girlfriend, who's cheaper than me and very smart when it comes to insurance, has actually asked her doctor, well, can I just pay the cash price, which is less than my high deductible? Oh, no, you have insurance, so you can't do that. Yeah.
One of the things that might be useful is an innovative tool that our department created a long time ago, the New Hampshire Health Cost website. And I don't want to tell you the wrong, I should know this by heart.
New Hampshire Health Cost.
Yeah, I think so. But if you just Google NH Health Cost, you'll find our website that we have. It's a standalone website. And there's a whole series of powerful searches you can do, charts, things like that. You can compare different services and different procedure costs and stuff from all over the region. And so that might be helpful to you as well. New Hampshire Health Costs is a website.
So like you said earlier, there's not much incentive to do a whole lot of investigation because the insurance just pays it.
That's true. One of the benefits we just did, I just looked into this several weeks ago. There was a piece of data, Chris, what was it, that since 2000, the first 3 or 5 years that this website existed, there was a very significant reduction in the overall cost that we saw, a not insignificant percentage reduction, just I think because of transparency.
I think it was $50 million.
Yeah.
It was a big number.
It was not insignificant.
Did you send the link to Greg or something?
So it's, yeah,
And then next week we'll send it out as a newsletter.
Yeah.
nhhealthcost.nh.gov. And the other thing is, though there's no incentive day one, and that's the truth. Unless you have a high deductible plan, there's no incentive day one. If we all started making consumer decisions related to our health decisions, insurance gets cheaper, automatic. So what we have to understand is that for all ACA health insurance plans, they are required to spend about 85% of total premium dollars on healthcare expenses. if they spend less, they have to give that money back. So they have to run Anthem, New Hampshire, has to run its entire business on the 15% that's left. That means marketing, paying its staff, its building, its risk, 15%. If we all make good healthcare decisions, or good lifestyle decisions, we can actually drive down that. And it also forces, I spend a lot of time in meetings with health groups, health provider groups, who say, I want to get paid more for a service. And oh yeah, by the way, I don't want to have to compete with low-cost providers, because we need to preserve, I'm a rural hospital and I need to preserve my OB unit. So you need to pay me more to preserve that as a societal good. Anything else, guys? This has been really great.
All right, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.